what may not be evident to a lot of us, a lot of people, is how quickly things, it seems like they've happened quickly, but there have been a number of years of effort that have gone into getting us to where we are today. And then you may see me in the community pass through working on this project or that or this, and you think, what are we doing? So we just thought it would be good, because we need your help, especially going forward, to help us stay in the right lane. Because now that we are going to scale, which we really did beginning in April, as you will see, April and May, it would be easy for us to get distracted. It would be easy for us to get sidetracked. And those who work with the Gateway piece, you can help us with that. And if you remember, the first time we met with the Gateway group at First United, when we had that meeting there, that was the purpose, to say, help us stay in the right lane and do everything we're doing with great dignity to the people we serve. That's one of our big concerns. And then with the NetworX group, it is a different approach, a different set of issues, and so we wanted to just show how we got to where we are. So I think what I may do is flip the lights just for these slides so that you can see them, and help you really get a feel. And I apologize, here at the bottom, we're not sure what's wrong. We seem to have maybe a bulb going bad. We're not sure. But here's an overview of the last couple years of what has been happening with a couple different organizations here in town to get us to where we are. In June of 2014, the Gaston Faith Network was charged with launching the Resource Connection Gateway. So let me explain what that means. The Gaston Faith Network was a group that had met loosely for almost 15 years. And that group was strictly volunteers, exclusively volunteers. There was no 501c3, there was no anything. They just got together and tackled local problems. When that group started 15, 18 years ago now, one of the things that started the impetus for that was there was a problem downtown with homeless people and vagrancy. That group coordinated bringing together and convening the police, the city government, and the downtown churches and human service volunteers. Went on to do that, and then went on for the police to actually win awards for some of the things that happened with the city police, for some of the things that came out of that. That was Bill Seabrook was the convener of that group. Bill got to the point in his career where he said, I've been doing this as a volunteer. I need to truly retire. I'm working as hard on this as I did my job for years. So I entered the picture. Bill helped raise a little money. A few others really raised most of it and worked on that. And I could work part-time for them, and that's what I did. I left communities and schools and came over and did this. And the thing that happened was we realized the big need when we did our needs assessment was for a single portal of entry for people to go or to be referred in our county so that they could get connected with human services. So we launched the Resource Connection Gateway from a napkin discussion after we finished a detailed and an extensive needs assessment. At the same time, 2014, Gaston Together, of which you've probably heard, was asked to launch a program and incubate a program called Keeping Families Intact. The drive behind that was the county manager at the time, Jan Winters, came to Donna Lockett, the head of Gaston Together, and said, Donna, the county government, can effectively serve every citizen who has a need. We can do that, but we can't do it as efficiently as a nonprofit could. Could you incubate this and help people get connected and plugged into resources? So to essentially move out of poverty and to move beyond its clutches. Keeping Families Intact was launched. those two programs. I was working part-time for each, working both the Gateway and helping build, keeping families intact. December 2014, we launched the Gateway pilot. That was the first time that anybody referred someone to a single source. From that source, they were connected, and we launched that. The first referral came from St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Dallas, and we connected that person with the right resources. Then in January 2015, St. Mark's Episcopal Church, a downtown church, launched a sanctuary counseling ministry. That was the working title for it. Heather is a member at St. Mark's. She's a counselor. She's also a full-time employee of the school system as a counselor. At that time, she was working for hospice. Since then, she's migrated over to Hunter High School. So the Episcopal Diocese of North Carolina, the Western North Carolina, funded sanctuary counseling, getting that started. And it was a counseling service with which we partnered and would refer people. And then they would help fund that, because most of the people who referred in there couldn't afford to pay for their own counseling. So that worked. That went through in January 2015. So you've got three entities: the Faith Network, Gaston Together, and St. Mark's Sanctuary Counseling, all working together. May 2015, the YMCA saw what we were doing, because they said we can now take this Keeping Families Intact project that has been incubated by Gaston Together, and they brought that under the umbrella of the Y. Keeping Families Intact became a part of the Gaston YMCA. The Gaston Together group said, thank you, that was our goal. We wanted to incubate it and give it to another agency, and that's what they did. And they stepped away. They no longer had anything to do with Keeping Families Intact other than to bless it and be thankful for it. It was moving. It had momentum. That was in May 2015. Then in September, Keeping Families Intact is growing. The Gateway is seeing more people. We're probably seeing 70 people a month at that time into the Gateway, with 8 churches, 10 churches referring people. We needed a more formal relationship with counselors. We didn't want it just going pell-mell to any counselor. So we agreed with Sanctuary over at St. Mark's that the Gateway, that St. Mark's would be our exclusive provider of counseling, because they had the funding, and they designated the funding, and they funded counseling, and we could refer them in there. And then we worked in our pilot with the most fluid way to do that. That has to happen with some with ease and with comfort. It has to be comfortable for the client, it has to be comfortable for the counselor, it has to be comfortable for the Gateway. So we began to do that and work on that. This year, 2016, there was a second round of Human Hurt and Hope funding, because they had spent their money at Sanctuary at St. Mark's. That was the goal, was to build a counseling center. They had spent it. Cynthia came in and helped us, and the Y paid her a very reasonable stipend, a very affordable stipend, to write that grant on behalf of St. Mark's. They received the next round of funding, because it has to go to a church. It can't go to anyone except an Episcopal church, but it has to have ecumenical and human service partnerships. The goal, the plan, was to get that round of funding, which we did. We were thrilled at that. There was no question about it. They were thrilled to fund it. And then in July 2017, that funding would be exhausted. There would be one final 7,500 layer of funding for which we could apply. And by July 2017, we would still be partnered with Sanctuary, but we would then be responsible for maintaining and sustaining the funding for the Gateway's counseling through Sanctuary Counseling. It was a perfect storm. You had all these agencies working together. But if you've been in Gaston County for a while, you know that doesn't always happen. We're thrilled with that. Now, just to help everyone here understand why this changed, because I know the NetworX group And you'll see there a list of questions I distributed. We want to make sure we answer all those between this meeting and the next, or hopefully this meeting. But this is where a piece of confusion came in. We weren't planning and budgeting to take over the funding responsibility until July 2017. We found that the priest at St. Mark's, he didn't know the proper process. He didn't realize. He was just taking clients in to his sanctuary counseling, and they were funding their counseling. He didn't know how to send them to the gateway. He thought that was sending them to the gateway. So we came up in November this month short on funding for the counseling. The first time that had happened, that was where we realized it. We realized it in October. We knew it would hit in September. So we've trained the priest. We've helped him. We've worked with Heather. We've appealed to some donors. I have just picked up in my mailbox, we haven't even deposited them yet, $1,500 in checks from 2 local churches who said, we'll help fill that gap. We can do that, and that'll help fill that gap, and we'll budget for that, work on that, and make sure that we cover the gap so that nobody goes unserved for counseling. But that's where the confusion came. It was just the classic failure of breakdown of communication. We had nothing to do with the funding of the counseling by design until July 2017. St. Mark's handled it. They got the funding. They did everything. But they weren't referring into the gateway properly. We fixed that. That's easy. We know how to do it now. But we're going to have to pick up and help with the funding a little earlier than we planned. Also knowing that we have another $7,500 layer that'll come in, for which we'll apply in March, May, right in that grant time. So that may help with some of that question. Then in January 2016, we get all these agencies working together, Faith Network, the Y, Sanctuary Counseling, all those are being formulated to work together. In January 2016, Gaston Faith Network was invited months before, but it formalized. In January 2016, the Faith Network became part of the Y and will just fade to black. There will be no need for another 501c3. The YMCA is now the 501c3. That will encompass Gaston. It will accomplish NetworX, which is the old KFI. You can see we just changed the name. We got a better curriculum, and I apologize. I can only do so much with the technology. It wasn't this way when we tested it, so it is what it is, and I'll give you these in writing in a little bit. April 2016, we merged. Then we launched our first NetworX pilot. Then in April 2016, the Resource Gateway pilot closed, and that's when we launched it to full scale. We went from 8 partners, we now have about 80 partners, at this 60 to 80, depending on how you categorize a partner. We went from 81 referrals a month to this month last month we had 240. We're probably going to have, with the short holiday this month, and the shortened month, we'll probably have about 210 this month. Close to 1,500 year to date, 1,500. Then in September, we did a NetworX youth pilot. Nobody in the country had done that. We tried it. We launched it. We did it for 10 weeks. Now we're assessing it. That just closed last Thursday. And then December 2016, that's been completed. We finished with 9 students from 7 schools who graduated. Our adult and families, we had 11 allies, 6 champions, and 6 children. You say, what the heck's an ally? What's a champion? What's a child? An ally is a mentor, for lack of a better word. A champion is a designated, targeted client, as it were, who is seeking to change his or her life and disengage from poverty, move past generational poverty. So that's the timeline. This is how it's set up. Now we have one 501c3, that's the Y. We have Department 08, which is Outreach, Chaplain, Director of Social Responsibility. We have 1 employee there, that's me, that's it. On one side, we have the Resource Connection Gateway. The Gateway connects community members with appropriate resources to address chronic poverty. We do not meet crisis needs. We connect people to get them help with the crisis need. But a lot of what we do is say those are not doors you really should be pursuing in this community. Because in our community we have a history of people going from church to church to business to business. The panhandling here is excessive compared with other communities, and we know that. So we are the recruitment piece, as it were, for NetworX, because NetworX reduces poverty at its holistic core, not through well-doing for others, but through well-being together. We're not doing for people what they can do for themselves. We are helping them establish boundaries. So, and you see there are two councils. There's a Gateway Council and there's an Advisory Council. They're not boards of directors. They don't have those responsibilities. They are there to help us improve, grow, and get better as we go. So that's how it's set up. Then the last slide that you'll see, and then we can talk about these, is what all is involved in Department 08 as a chaplain and director of social responsibilities. We have NetworX, or Gateway rather, and we have NetworX. Then there are 35 other things and other projects that I'm involved in that all are through that department. I'll run you through them. I'm not going to read them all. This one I can announce, and I'm thrilled. The press conference is at 8:30 in the morning. $200,000 scholarship program with Belmont Abbey, the Gaston County Police. We have been at the Y, the ones who helped Chief Ramey put that together and take it to the faith community. We've been unable to announce that until today, but the press conference is tomorrow. It's a $200,000 grant program where drug forfeiture monies will be utilized, and you'll get more details tomorrow, will be utilized to go back into the communities from which they came and recruit and pay for young men and young women to get a full scholarship to become police officers. It's a pretty exciting program. There are other things through, these are Gateway related, like board meetings. That's part of what has to happen to be in a department. Career coaching and classroom instruction, that's part of what the Gateway provides. We provide career coaching so people can be prepared and equipped and ready for NetworX. We have a prayer breakfast that we do annually through this department. We have financial coaching and financial wellness coaching and resource connection. Pastoral counseling. Every Gateway referral gets a pastoral call from me or from the person in our department that eventually we hope to employ. Right now it's from me. Counseling, we have to oversee that. Heather does a great job, but there are responsibilities I have. Our Greater Gaston Baptist Community Ministries, they volunteer to be our guinea pig, as it were, for many of the programs that we're doing. So for a year and a half, we've been working intimately with them, to work together. Today, lady calls the Baptist Association from the city police. She needed something. Baptist Association was able to say to her, Gateway's got you covered. Within 8 minutes, we had a woman or a person connected and headed, we hope, if she follows through, to rehab, rather than her just scrambling for days and possibly being homeless and on the streets. Fundraising, we invested $98,000 in the community this year. We've raised every penny of that through Department 08. The Y has put no membership dollars into what we do yet, and we're thankful for that. And that's primarily thanks to Cynthia for her amazing finding and helping us find them. We're involved in several councils across the county that all put us back in the community, and you can see the rest of those. We have the Y Without Walls that is our responsibility as the Y as we leave the west side to continue to grow programs outside the Y, so that when we go that 4.5 miles, it's not 450 miles. We continue to serve the community. Not only do we continue, we grow what we're doing there. And then you can go on down through those and see them. There are many others. Like I said, there are 38 there. So that's how it's set up. That's how it looks. That's what 08 involves. I think probably the best thing to do is, you've heard a lot from me, is for me to hopefully be able to answer your questions. And if I can do that, I would love to.
Just one comment on that last slide that Dwayne showed.